The ugliest family betrayal of my adult life started when my brother looked across my father's birthday table and said, "Leah, when anything real happens, you're useless." My mother laughed first. My father joined her. Then the private dining room door opened, and 3 soldiers walked straight toward me. First Sergeant Dana Ruiz stopped beside my chair and said, "Major Bennett, the county moved the evacuation window. First bus rolls in 40 minutes. We need your route decision now." The laughter vanished so completely I could hear rain striking the windows. My father stared at Dana, then at me. "Wait," he said. "She's in charge of this?" Dana gave him one calm look. "She commands us, sir." That answer did not end the night. It only exposed how much my parents had been lying about me. My name is Major Leah Bennett. I was 36, commander of a fictional mobility support company with 146 soldiers responsible for emergency transport, route control, vehicle recovery, and movement planning. My father Robert's 65th birthday dinner was being held in a private room at a riverside restaurant outside Millstone, Pennsylvania. 22 relatives were there, including my mother Elaine and my younger brother Evan. The windows looked over the river, which would matter before dessert. Evan had always been the child my parents could explain in one sentence. Business school, construction project manager, house 15 minutes away, Sunday dinners. His life looked practical to them. Mine looked theoretical. I was the daughter who kept leaving for training, assignments, exercises, and disaster response missions. My parents never said they hated my career. They simply translated it downward. A platoon became a team. Operations became scheduling. Command became office work. By the time I made major, Mom described me as basically an administrator in uniform, like she was editing a family caption. The problem stopped being annoying 6 months before Dad's birthday. Evan's company was bidding on a county emergency transport contract. He asked me to write a letter saying his fleet met military-grade readiness standards. I refused. I explained that I could not use my military title to strengthen a private company's public bid, especially when my unit sometimes coordinated with the same county agencies. Evan went quiet, then said, "So all that rank is useless when your family actually needs something." The next morning, Mom told me I had humiliated him. Dad reminded me that Evan helped them with repairs, appointments, and taxes, while I was always somewhere else. Then Dad said, "You know how to make people salute, Leah. You don't seem to know how to help." The rule was suddenly clear. Help only counted when it benefited the family directly. Within weeks, relatives were asking whether I had been moved to temporary desk duty. When I asked Mom why, she said, "We only told people your job isn't real command the way they imagine it. What do you imagine? Forms, trucks, schedules, support." She said support like it meant optional. 3 weeks before Dad's dinner, a tropical system stalled over western Pennsylvania. The river basin saturated, feeder roads began taking water, and 2 low-lying nursing facilities plus a rehabilitation center moved onto the county's evacuation watch list. My company was placed on short-notice support posture. If the threshold was crossed, we would manage military transport routes, maintenance recovery, vehicle staging, and fuel windows supporting civilian buses. Dana ran readiness, Malik tracked recovery, and Tessa updated routes. We were not running the county. We were one piece of the plan. But if our piece failed, buses could stop moving. On Dad's birthday, the forecast worsened. River gauges climbed faster than expected. I almost skipped dinner. Dana told me to go. "You have your phone. We have the checklist. If posture changes, we'll come get you." I asked why she said come get me instead of call me. She said, "Because your mother has ignored 3 calls from us when she thought we were telemarketers." Dana was joking, but the point was useful. My family had spent so long treating my work as background noise that even my unit's calls sounded unimportant to them. That made me laugh, so I went. I wore a dark teal blouse, kept my phone on the table, and promised Dana I would answer immediately if the posture changed. For the first hour, dinner was almost peaceful. Then one of Dad's friends asked what I was doing now. Mom answered for me. "Still support work, transportation and paperwork. I said, I command a mobility support company. Dad waved his fork. There she goes with the titles. A few relatives laughed. Evan leaned back and asked, what does that mean in real life? A truck breaks and you fill out a form? The joke landed because my career had been reduced to office supplies for years. I told him my company made sure the truck, replacement, route, recovery team, and fuel all existed when people needed them. So logistics, he said. Yes. He smiled toward our parents. Useful on paper. Mom laughed first. Dad followed. Then Evan looked at me and said, honestly, Leah, when anything real happens around this family, you're useless. I looked at my father. He was still smiling. I looked at my mother. She gave me the expression that meant, don't make a scene. Then the door opened. Dana entered first, wet from the rain, followed by Staff Sergeant Malik Brooks and Sergeant Tessa Kim. They wore plain travel clothes and carried folded weather jackets and a route packet. Dana crossed directly to me. Major Bennett, the county moved the evacuation window. First bus rolls in 40 minutes. We need your route decision now. Dad spoke before I could move. Wait, she's in charge of this? Dana looked at him once. She commands us, sir. Nobody at the table laughed. I stood and pulled the route packet closer. Which gauge crossed? Malik said. North Fork. 11.8 and climbing. Tessa opened the map. County wants the East Bridge for buses. Engineer liaison thinks the approach is soft. How many in the first movement? 63 residents, Dana said. 6 wheelchairs, 3 oxygen-dependent. I spread the map across the empty end of the dinner table. Water glasses and birthday cards were pushed aside for road markings and handwritten notes. The relatives who had been laughing leaned forward. For the next 90 seconds, my father's birthday became a planning cell. The seriousness came from how quickly Dana, Malik, and Tessa moved once I started asking questions. I told Tessa to hold heavy vehicles off the East Bridge until the approach was rechecked. I told Malik to stage recovery vehicles south of the river so a disabled bus could not trap the convoy. I told Dana we would use the longer Ridge Farm corridor for Wave 1 if the county confirmed the bus turn radius. Then I called County Emergency Director Mark Ellison. Mark said the East Bridge would save 12 minutes. I said, 12 minutes means nothing if the approach fails under the third bus. He checked with his engineer and approved Ridge Farm. Dana asked, that's the call? That's the call. The 3 soldiers turned toward the door. The silence around the table felt different now. The joke had become responsibility. My Aunt Melissa said, Robert, you told us she was doing temporary support paperwork. Mom answered too quickly. We never said temporary. My cousin Rachel said, you absolutely did. I picked up my bag. Mom asked, you're leaving your father's birthday? I said, 63 people are leaving a flood zone. Then I followed my soldiers into the rain. Ridge Farm added 11 minutes, but it gave us wider shoulders, 2 safe pull-off points, and room for a recovery vehicle to pass a stopped bus. In flood response, redundancy can be faster than getting trapped on the shorter route. Tessa confirmed the turn radius. Dana staggered the buses so one breakdown could not block the line. Malik positioned his recovery crew at the south staging point. The route stayed open. 28 minutes after the second bus cleared the East Bridge area, the saturated shoulder beside that approach slumped into the drainage channel. The bridge did not collapse. It did not need to. A bus meeting that failed approach at night, in heavy rain, with oxygen-dependent residents aboard, would have been enough. We moved all 63 residents, 18 staff members, and their medical equipment before midnight. Wheelchair passengers went first. Oxygen-dependent residents stayed with medical staff, and each bus checked in before the next entered the corridor. No bus was stranded. No resident lost oxygen support. One vehicle threw a belt near the south staging point, and Malik's team repaired it before the next cycle. By the time the last bus checked in, everyone was wet, tired, and exactly where they were supposed to be. At 1:30, Mark handed me coffee and said, "Good call on the east approach." I told him, "The engineer saw the risk. My NCOs brought me the facts. You approved the route. Command is being responsible for what happens after everyone gives you their piece. Authority was not the same thing as being the loudest person in the room. Around 2, I checked my phone. There were 11 family messages. The first was from Aunt Melissa. Your father looks like someone unplugged him. The second was from Rachel. I found the screenshots. Those screenshots proved the problem had never been misunderstanding. 3 months earlier, after a cousin congratulated me on command, Mom had written in the family group, "Please don't make a big production out of Leah's title. It's support, not real command like people imagine." Dad replied, "Exactly. Mostly coordination," Evan added, "and apparently not useful enough to help her own brother." They knew I commanded the company. They had deliberately reduced it after I refused to lend my position to Evan's business bid. Misunderstanding can be corrected. A story edited on purpose requires a boundary. The next afternoon, after 4 hours of sleep and a transition brief, I went to my parents' house. Dad opened the door and said, "You made your point." "The flood made my point," I said. "I came to hear yours." Mom and Evan were at the kitchen table. Mom started with, "We were proud of what you did last night." I asked, "Were you proud before 3 soldiers walked into the restaurant?" She looked down. Dad said they had only been trying to protect Evan after I refused to help with the contract. "You weren't protecting him," I said. "You were teaching the family that ethics are useless unless they benefit us." Evan flinched. Then he surprised me. "She's right." Dad turned toward him. Evan kept going. His company lawyer had told him the day after my refusal that my endorsement request was inappropriate. He had known I was right for months. "So why didn't you correct them?" I asked. He looked at the table. "Because their version made me feel less stupid." That was the first honest thing he had said about it. I did not forgive him on the spot, but honesty finally gave us something real to work with instead of another family translation. I told all 3 of them I did not want an apology dinner, a proud daughter post, or a speech about how they had always believed in me. I wanted the false story corrected where they had spread it. I wanted a correction. Mom would post in the same family group where she minimized my command. Dad would stop calling my work paperwork temporary duty or fake command. Evan would explain why I refused the endorsement and admit his own lawyer agreed with me. And none of them would ever use my title, photograph, unit, or position to promote a private business. Dad said, "That sounds like terms." It is. What happens if we refuse? Then you can have a relationship with the version of me you invented. I won't be there to play her. Mom posted the correction that evening. Her first draft said they had understated my role because of a family disagreement. I made her change it. The final version read, "Leah commands a 146-soldier mobility support company. We were wrong to tell family that her role was only paperwork or not real command." Evan posted separately that I had refused his endorsement because using my official position for a private bid would have been inappropriate, and that his lawyer later confirmed it. For the first time in years, the family story became boringly accurate. No grand tribute, just the truth, posted where they had spent months shrinking it. A week later, Dana walked into my office carrying the route map from Dad's dinner. She had flattened it inside a cheap black frame. Malik and Tessa had signed the corner. Under their names, Dana had written one sentence, "Useful when it counted." I laughed until I had to sit down. The frame still hangs behind my desk. Not because 3 soldiers walked into a restaurant and rescued me. They did not. They came because the work was real, the responsibility was real, and a flood did not care what my family called me. The people outside my family needed me to be accountable, not impressive. Support is easy to mock until the road closes. Leadership is easy to minimize until someone has to choose the route. And family loyalty is easy to demand until loyalty requires telling the truth instead of protecting a favorite child's pride. My brother called me useless, and my parents laughed. Then, 3 soldiers walked in and asked me to make the decision everyone outside my family already trusted me to make. Would you have confronted them at the restaurant, or left like I did and demanded the correction the next day? Tell me your city and your answer below. Subscribe to Velvet Revenge Stories For more original family betrayal stories about military daughters, quiet strength, and consequences.